So, hey, can I ask you a question real quick before we get started?
Yeah, of course.
It's a serious question. Now I'm going to cut this out. Hey, what's going down? You're on the recovery pod.
It's either always going down or it's going up. Sometimes it goes down, sometimes it goes up.
That's what he said.
Penis metaphors.
Cue laughter. So, the sky, though. I was just riding back from dropping my daughter off, and the sky was lit. Like, I don't know what it is about, like, pink clouds and sunsets. Like, it really just gives me such a vibe. Like, the whole sky was, like, pink, orange, or yellow or something, and it was just, like, all these clouds by the sun, and it was just so lit. And I don't know. I just appreciate that shit. Especially if I catch it, like, right at the right time, because it was literally, like, a 15-minute window where it was like that, and then it was just gone.
Yeah, it's really cool that you and, just anybody who has the ability to appreciate that is just has the ability to look around their present environment because, if you remember back when we didn't give a flying rat's ass about the sky or anything. And now we can just notice things like that and actually feel things from it because, before we thought that drugs is the only thing that could make us feel away. But now we're finding that there's so many different things that could make us feel. And
Right.
it's just a beautiful gift.
Yeah, I really could care less back then. And just like, okay, so what? Cool. That's sad, Sometimes I think I took it too far because sometimes I could just stare at a leaf and just be like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, look at that grass. It's so green. Like, that's kind of cool. It's just kind of cool. Yeah. So anyway, what's going on with you? Do you have anything you'd like to discuss? Do you have like a topic?
Well, you know me, it's always turning into Anna's Problems podcast. But
I mean, I was looking for a rebrand, but we can talk about my problems for a change if you want.
I would love to. I never hear about your problems.
Well, it's because I use my toolbox pretty steadily. But like lately I've just been especially with my profession and everything, I keep slipping in and out of this like I want to help people mode, which I do, but also realizing that the disease is like pretty heavy in a lot of people, and people are always at different stages of like willingness and stuff. So it's like this I don't know how to, it's like this dance where I have to stay on like the most perfectly balanced place to keep my recovery where I need it to be, because I have a lot of conversations with resistance and a lot of conversations about how it's okay to use because these people are still in that place. And then it's like it almost becomes this like trying to convince people to choose recovery, and I know it's well intentioned and it's not like heavy on my end, but it is also ineffective. I have to remember to like ask questions about what they want and where they're at, but also at the same time keep my recovery in my headspace where I need it to be, which is abstinence and moving forward with like other areas of improvement. So it's just one of them things that like right now I'm in my phase where I'm pulling back from getting back to the balance, because I'll be there and then and then I'll feel like, well, I'm not pushing some people hard enough, because it does require a fair amount of push. And this doesn't just mean like my job. This could be talking to a friend, a family member, anybody. So then I'll push a little bit and work my angles. But then I realize I get like preachy, not preachy, but suggestive. and then it becomes too much of that, and I need to pull back and kind of take my hand off the wheel and say, all right, motherfuckers, like, y'all do what you want to do, you know what I mean? Like, and then it's too much of that. You get my drift?
No, I do. And I've always been like so astonished with people who are in recovery themselves, who are constantly surrounded by, you know, people that are resisting. And ever since, like, I remember when I first met you and you told me your job, I'm like, damn, dude, being around that all the time, like, I know I couldn't handle it. But then again, I was sitting there talking about how I was bartending and shit. So,
Right.
yeah. But for me, it was more just like I was just disconnected from like my like addict or whatever feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, this is just like a thing that I would just see as everybody kind of just being able to see or understand that everybody lives in their own world. They all have their own little dream that they're living, their own little, how they, you know, each and every one of us have our own little world. So if you're able to just kind of keep that separate, which you obviously have been doing an amazing job with, just when you're hearing all that, just kind of separating and like detaching from it, like, oh, this is their own world. I still have my world.
Right.
Like, I got a call today, and I like work in IT, so I got a call from someone who is very mean. Like, she's like, "Yeah, I don't. Do you guys fix like cracked screens?" And I'm like, we can take a look. Not a for sure thing." And she's just like, "Well, I don't want to come in and waste my time." So that really like kind of like got to me. But then I was able to detach. Like, that's her own little world. Like, it has nothing to do with me. So it's just like hearing people say things, it's just them saying it because of their world, because of how they see their world, you know?
Right. Yeah, and everybody's at different places, you know, and I can understand her side and I can understand your side in that. And like I kind of had something similar, like in my world type stuff, where someone was calling and they were like, oh, like my friend's boyfriend or brother or whatever it was, like OD'd last night. Now he's in jail. And I heard you guys can get him out and get him into rehab. And I'm like, no, like, I don't think that's something we can do. And I'm like, I know some people can finish their sentence in a rehab, but I think it's pretty much on the legal side if they're, you know, a worthy candidate, if they seem willing, or if they're just trying to skate by with an easy, you know, rest of their term. But that's not on us. And she's like, I'm like, I can check with you tomorrow. She's like, well, we got to figure this out right now. So, like, can you do it or not? And I'm like,
Oh, wow.
I can't do it. Like, you know, but I get that, you know, and I don't know, so many things spin through my head. Like, is this person ready? Is this person like want recovery? Do they just want to get out of jail? Like, not my problem. And honestly, probably wouldn't affect my decision, you know, unless they were just flat out trying to scam us. Like, no, we reserve this for people who at least kind of want it. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it's a limited seating. Um, but yeah, but everybody is totally in a different phase. Some people like they like the comforts drugs give them. They don't want to like they're not ready or willing yet to fight against it. You know what I mean? To face the problems in their life. Like some people, I talk to a lot of people where they're in like really shitty relationships or they're in really like toxic environments all around, and the drugs keep them content in it, you know. And it's like the obvious answer from the outside looking in is okay, like because they're also not happy with what it takes to feel okay in it, doing all these drugs all the time and just numbing out, but they don't know anything else, and they can't even fathom putting the drugs down and getting out of these situations, like because it's painful and it's a huge risk and a huge commitment to get out of something, you know, especially when it's a relationship that they're holding on to like a small thread of maybe it'll work, you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can sympathize because I've been there. Like, but yeah, it's hard to watch sometimes. But like the way I do it, like it doesn't really affect me. Like when you're like, oh, I don't know how you do it. Like other people's choices don't affect me. Like I feel for them. There are some that stick out to me that I really root for. But at the end of the day, like if they choose to fall back, that's not keeping me up at night. Like that just reinforces my decisions where I'm like, okay, look how good they were doing. Look what they didn't do,
Mm-hmm.
and look what led them back. Now you keep that in mind, sir. And I do. Maybe that's selfish, or maybe that's just using someone else's mistakes as a lesson for me, but I definitely try as much as I can, but I can't fucking fix anybody or fight everyone's disease.
Yeah, I guess you could see like either side of the extreme. Like it sometimes gets you into that place, like where you question, maybe like that does make sense. But then also seeing right in front of you how that is actually a horrible idea, and it's just like a reminder right there in front of you, constantly. But yeah, everything has its ups and downs.
Yeah. Yeah, and when I do feel slightly triggered or thinking, oh, maybe I can do that, like it's the wrong side of me. It's not the side of me that needs to listen,
Yeah.
that I need to listen to. It's not the side of me that's going to make me better. It's not the side of me that's going to like make me more productive in life. And it comes along with its own characteristics that aren't so fun. That I just know me, man. If I get, I don't know, if I give myself too much wiggle room in that department, I'm going to give myself more and more.
Okay, so I just came up with kind of like a metaphor a little bit.
Okay.
So there's like two sides of every person. There's the ego and then the higher self, obviously. I mean, the ego isn't actually who we are, but it's just a part that's there.
Right.
And then both, you can like exercise and like work out both sides. So when we spend our time in active addiction, we're exercising and we're strengthening the ego. Now, when we're in recovery and we go to meetings consistently and we, read self-help things and, whatever, we are strengthening our higher selves. So it comes to a point where the higher self can be stronger than the ego. So you're at a point, it sounds like, where your higher self has been strengthened, that you are listening, like the strength measurement is from what you're listening to. Like it's easier, more natural for you to listen to your higher self in those situations. So, but in times when your ego is stronger, of course, it's going to win. It's going to be stronger, and you're going to listen to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, it's still there, like you said, and I can work one out all day. The other one's still going to be there. Even in my active addiction, my higher self was still there. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So it just wasn't strong, but it would still like whimper every now and then, like, "Hey, I'm still here.
Yeah.
I hear you, bro. Hold up. let me
little
shut you up real
a
quick."
little scrawny dude just laying on the ground like
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, you done yet? Like, I will never be done. Do you give up? No, never. Like,
and that's
same with the ego, though. You know what I mean? I don't care. I really believe I don't care how enlightened you get, how like positive you get, how successful you get, how much you turn away from drugs and alcohol, and you say, I will never go back to that. You will still have that voice. Like it may not give you cravings. It may not, give you funky moods or bad days, but it's still there. And it's one of them ones where when we start like denying the further growth we need to make, and we start thinking we got this, that's when that voice starts to like silence itself and almost gather up its strength without you even knowing it. You know what I mean?
right.
Like people who sit there and like, you know what, I've graduated AA, I got my chip, I haven't had an urge in 2 weeks, I'm good to go. And or whatever, even like, oh, I've gone for 5 years, I've got a good job, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm not, I always like try to like disclaim here, like I'm not saying you need to go to meetings forever or that's the only way, but whatever worked for you, when you start going back and getting comfortable back in like non-growth areas or old familiar areas, that's when they can slowly start. And now I get a little more road rage, now I get a little more point of view arguments going on left and right, you know what I mean? And then it just slips back before I know it, where I'm just in shitty moods more often than not, you know, because I haven't thought of gratitude in a long time, or I haven't tried to help someone else, you know, I've been too busy thinking I got this, you know.
Yeah, it's like silent killer. It's kind of scary. Yeah, it's never, that's why it's good to just stay like humble and never get cocky, and because
Yo, I was thinking earlier, my bad, were you still
no, it's all
going
good.
there? So I was thinking earlier when we were like talking about perfectionism the other day, and I was just thinking, you know, I feel like humility is the number one counter to perfectionism, because when we're in the perfectionist state, we want to be the best. We can't accept any flaws. And humility is like not only accepting that it's okay, but being like honest with yourself. You know what I mean? Like humility is like, hey, I'm not perfect and I'm okay with that. And then you can kind of have the lens to keep looking for areas of improvement, but also being humble enough to like know in your heart, it's okay to be where I'm at. Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I feel like that's like the key, because you don't want to get to a point where you're just accepting your flaws and not doing anything about them, but you also don't want to get to the point where you're constantly looking for flaws and then gritting your teeth trying to fix them. You know, it's like that balance again.
Yeah, and that's why the steps are so perfectly written, because first it went from, okay, the person is, working on their defects, right? They're noticing their defects. Now, of course, whoever wrote the steps knew that the next thing that was going to come is that they're going to cross that line. Instead of noticing the defects, they're just going to full blown like, oh, I've noticed these defects. Well, I got to notice every single one. I got to like perfect it. So then in the seventh step, it talks about humility. Like that is the humility step. And because then after that, after the defects, it's like, oh, you want to become perfect, but then you got to have that humility. It just reminds you of it. Like the whole like seventh step work, like questions or whatever, are about that. And it just flows so perfectly. And it just all makes sense. Like why, because like, I that's what I'm going through right now, is just reminding myself of humility.
Right. Damn, man, I didn't even think about, like, I'm glad the steps get referenced every now and then, because I did step 6 like over a year ago.
Yeah.
And I still haven't even thought about doing step 7. Like, such a slacker.
Well, it's not that you're a slacker, it's just that you haven't been ready to let go of your defects, because I see the just between like you and me and the listeners, I
Just between all 10 of us.
yeah, I wrote step 7 and was working on step 8, but in terms of like actual like like throughout my life, like the days and just how I've been living, it's like I've been on step 6 for like several months now. Like, cause I remember I stopped writing the steps like back in like May, June. And I've just been, even though I've written step 7, I've been on step 6, like just feelings wise. And now
Well,
I'm
yeah, you got a
actually,
lot of defects, so it takes a while to write them all down.
or to just actually notice them, because it's like logically we know things. Logically we're told, okay, this is that. But we really gotta like, one thing is knowing, but the other thing is feeling. It's so much more important to just be able to feel, which is why people, certain people, like they know what they're doing with their lives is just, shit, and they just can't, but they haven't felt it all the way through, because they got to feel it all the way through in order to want to change. So they got to feel their defects all the way through, and they got to feel their addiction all the way through to be like, okay,
Right.
I
And we're so
actually
used to
can't.
not feeling. We're just so used to numbing it, not feeling, not addressing it, that it takes time to learn and be able to like. Some people don't even like looking at themselves. So
Yeah.
that alone is scary. So forget when they actually notice like a few of the big scary defects that are like obvious. Then there's the little minor ones that are like limited beliefs and just old ingrained behaviors where they cause problems, but not like, oh my God, I'm going to jail problems, or oh my God, I'm in the hospital problems, or my wife's about to leave me problems, but just like, oh, I'm really causing a lot of problems with people around me type problems. And you know what I mean? Like things that my life would be better without this problems. And, it's scary to look that deep sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, like, 6 and 7 go hand in hand. And someone broke it down like this, which it is kind of worded like this, but it's also kind of could be misconstrued where it's like the sixth step is like, you do all your 4 and your 5. That's like looking at your big list of faults, finding the pattern, admitting it to someone, just saying it out loud, getting it out. So you're not harboring it and holding it and giving it more power. Step 6 is like,
7.
these are the defects. No, 6.
Oh, sorry.
I was talking about 4 and 5. So, like, 6 is the defects part. Like, these are the things negative that are holding me down. And then 7 is these are my shortcomings, things that, well, I guess they're holding me down too. But, like, so the defects are the things I do that bring me down. The shortcomings are the things I do that keep me down, that I need to build up, like my fear of failure or things that stop me from going up. You know what I mean? They're like my sheltered behaviors that I've suppressed, where my defects are the ones that need to be suppressed.
Yeah.
Like you guys get under the net, you guys rise above the net. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So, which is scary too, and it's like I've said before, like it's you would think why wouldn't you just want to be rid of your defects and your shortcomings? Like who wouldn't? And it's like fuck, man, it's scary. It's scary to want to live like so bravely all the time, because you got to be ready. You really got to be ready to like boots strapped up, let's go. Like once you start the party, we ain't gonna stop, you know?
Yeah, I'm kind of looking around at people, and I'm just thinking we've all had certain like childhoods where something once happened and it just made us fear that thing ever happening. So we're all living in a constant fear of that thing repeating itself. But like for one, most likely it's not going to happen again. But we're just always like on the state of alertness, like, oh yeah, like this could happen any moment. And for two, even if it does, we're gonna be okay. Like nobody's gonna like hurt us. Nobody's, gonna yell at us. And whatever that person may do, it's because of their own little world, their own defects, their own problems, which has nothing to do with us, you
Right.
know? And I just realized like with my perfectionism, I I just like literally just finally noticed this. Like I feel like there is something walking around right behind me, some like entity or a person who is constantly screaming in my ear, telling me to do things a certain way. And if I don't do them that certain way, I'm a failure. Like, I'm just constantly afraid of that thing. I'm afraid of that thing yelling at me. I'm afraid of that thing hurting me. But that thing is not there. And just like
Right.
realizing that it's not there, that I don't have to do things a certain way. And if I don't do them, nobody gives a fuck. Nobody's going to yell at me. And whoever might give a fuck, they're either far away or it's none of their business. And they like, I'm not obligated to report it to anybody. I'm not obligated to tell anybody. I'm not obligated to do jack shit for anybody. And like, it's just been so relieving.
Yeah, for sure. And perfectionism really is just like an endless game.
Yeah.
Like, what's the end point? Where does it stop? Okay. Like I said this the other day in the meeting, but, y'all weren't there. Maybe one of y'all was. Shout out to you. You know who you are, my dog. Um, like, there is no point to get to perfection. When I was using, perfect was, getting better at my music, having some money in my pocket, getting clean, not having to like chase after drugs every day, be in a decent relationship, have a good relationship with my kids. Like that would have been a perfect life. Now I have that. But if I want to play the perfection game, I could say I need a better paying job. I need a better car. I need more money. I need, to never feel like I need to crave attention or love or, you know what I mean? I can always find a new flaw to say, well, I got to work on that. And it depends on the mindset. If like I'm just looking for things for improvement because I'm inspired to grow and get better, that's all good. If I'm looking at it from a defeating standpoint, like, yeah, man, you've got like so many things in life and you've made so much progress, but you know what? You haven't done this yet, so you suck. And if you don't get there, you are worthless. You know what I mean? Like, it all depends on how you're looking at it. And just as we were taught to like police ourselves and govern ourselves, we can be taught to like do it with a different law, like a different standard, and say, you know what? Let's be our own cheerleaders and not our own like judges and shit.
Yeah, so the whole thing with perfectionism, it being a never-ending game, like you said, nothing is ever enough, perfect enough. What does that sound like?
Sounds like the ego to me.
Sounds like the disease of addiction, too.
Oh,
So perfectionism is a disease, 100%.
yeah. It's like, hey, when you fixed one thing, I need more. I need more. I want more. But yeah, it's never enough. It's just this like endless game. Because even in addiction, it was the same thing, just towards the other side. Like, I need to make more money. I need to be more popular. I need to like, sleep with more people. I need to have more people like praise my existence. You know what I mean? It was just like, I need a better title than you because that makes me better than you. It's just not only addiction, but ego shit. But like, and even that would never be enough. So it's good to be enough. Gently remind yourself of areas for improvement, like keep a steady forward momentum, but also get in the habit of not, because what do you do when you're a perfectionist? What do? You're looking for flaws. You like literally live to search
Yeah.
for flaws,
Yeah.
and that habit is just like exhausting. Like,
Yeah.
I can find a flaw with everything if I want to.
Yes. 100%.
But when you have gratitude and you're looking for the good things in life, like during this whole pandemic and shit, like people have literally, and that with more than enough reason. I mean, this year's been fucked, but like people have been on a nonstop search for flaws. They don't have to try too hard to find them, but they're finding them, magnifying them, and focusing on them. And it's like, cool. We get that. Like, whatever we can do to make this world better, I'm glad things are coming to light in all areas. But at the same time, like, there's so much good that's happening that people aren't looking at or even acknowledging without a yeah, but all this bad shit. And it's like, that's why the media and the news feeds us bad shit, because we eat it up. Like, we ain't gonna watch some drama series about everybody planting trees and giving hugs. We're gonna watch shit about murder and betrayal and toxic shit because we're just like, yes, like,
Yeah, it's almost like,
which is understandable.
yeah, I mean, the ego is attracted to negativity and the higher self is attracted to positivity. The higher self wants to give love and the ego wants to take love, which is kind of, you know, equivalent to
Yeah.
just seeking to hate, finding reasons to hate. So, yeah, like you said, you could either look at, you know, oh, I don't have a Ferrari. Or you could be like, oh, well, I do have like a Toyota Yaris. I don't know. I do have a car. Like, just instead of looking at, just, you could literally, just as easily as you can like find negativity, you can just as easily find, or there's just as much positivity. So
Yeah.
essentially, there's really no point in looking for negativity. But it's almost like the ego always needs something to identify with. So if it finds negativity, it has those like things to identify with, the negative emotions that come with it. Now, if you're like just seeing the positives, it kind of just like kills it almost. So yeah.
Well, it depends too on when you're looking at negativity. What are you looking at? What are you looking for?
Right.
And what do you do when you find it? Are you looking for negativity just to jump on board and say that sucks? Yeah, I'm on the side that says that sucks. Or are you looking for a solution? Or are you just
Right.
using that to fuel your own justification for whatever you're doing?
Yeah, because
You
if
know?
you look at something that's negative in the light of like to just get yourself in a bad mood about it. Yeah, but like if you're looking at it in a way like, oh, like you're using this as a crutch, like for example, making a mistake, you look at that as a learning experience to build yourself up instead of to put yourself down. So essentially there's no such thing as a bad thing that would happen to you because you would just look at every quote unquote bad thing as a stepping stone, as a way to move up. Like I just had this thought the other day, um, or today actually. So I work with a couple of technicians who view us service desk people as like complete and utter like dumbasses. And when I would ask questions about things, they would just treat me like I'm stupid. And instead of focusing on that, I use them as a crutch to get to learn things. They are like, they're a big thing that I basically use now for knowledge. I don't look at them as, oh man, people are horrible, people are shit. Um, they're just treating me like shit. Like, no, I don't do that anymore because there's just like, it's better to just focus on the positive side of it. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, like you can't engage with the negativity because even if you engage with negativity and you are opposing it with like positivity or a more positive argument, you still are feeding the trolls. Like I don't there were like two times this week alone where on Facebook, you know, it wasn't anything super crazy. But there's been like a couple things going on in like one of these communities I follow, and then probably the other one was like political. And like I feel that the statements these people were making were like very biased, one-sided, egotistical, and ignorant. And I wanted to say something and I started typing something on one of them, and I just stopped myself because I'm like, what is this going to solve? Like, I'm just going to argue with them.
Right.
They're going to argue back with me. I'm going to get worked up. They're going to get worked up. Just as much as they have their side and the reasons they support it, I have my side and the reasons I may feel that's wrong because I feel neutral, or I feel, the other way, or I feel they're wrong is coming from a place from when they were wronged, and it's just this cycle. And I just stop myself and I'm like, I'm just not doing it. Like,
Yeah.
and that doesn't mean I can't speak up against things and try to have a healthy debate or come at things from a higher standpoint. But when I feel an impulse and I'm giving into it, it really doesn't matter what I'm saying because I'm feeling the wrong energy. I do know that about myself. Like if I have like when I go to argue with people, there's times where I'm argumentative and it doesn't feel bad. It doesn't feel wrong and it doesn't feel even if it causes problems. It's coming from a place of truth. I'm coming from a place of disagreement. It's one of them things that's probably better mentioned than not mentioned because not mentioning it would cause a further rift, you know? Maybe it's someone I regularly deal with and I don't have a negative feeling with that. Then there's times where I may not be straight talking shit, but I am coming from a place of some form of sass or fighting or something. And I feel, I just have a physical feeling. And I know I've learned that that feeling is telling me something. It's telling me, like, you are speaking from a lower place right now. And you need to just take a breath, you know? Because when I do give into it, it never goes right. It always just becomes more. And I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
And I listen.
It just all depends what place that's coming from. If you're doing it to be heard, to communicate, or if you're doing it to prove somebody wrong.
Hey.
Hey.
Yes. Yeah, because at the end of the day, we're never all going to get on the same page about anything
Yeah.
ever. You know, so it's all about like finding your people, keeping what's right. You know, there are going to be people in your life like family or coworkers or friends that you're not going to see eye to eye with that you don't necessarily need to cut out, but maybe some type of wall needs to go up like, hey, friend, we just don't talk about that. Or, hey, family member, since we are so at odds about something that's like pretty important to both of us, we may need a little distance and that's okay. You know what I mean? And that's where each individual person needs to kind of dictate that for themselves because not everybody is on this like, oh yeah, you want to have a boundary, sure, I respect that. You know, like nobody, you know.
Yeah. We like we just all live in our own like little world, and we all have our own just way of thinking and just set ways and thinking, and just trying to see somebody else's point of view can just be really hard because of the different life experiences and just not being able to understand what place that person is coming from until you could communicate too, but it's like there's certain things that are just still rooted really deep, and that's why it's
Mm-hmm.
important just to like not have to like either prove yourself right or the other wrong, or whatever. It's just it is how it is for each person. And there's like this weird misconception with like family or like relationships. I know like in my family it was extremely toxic in the way it's you know y'all always have to just it's like you owe each other something. There's like no boundaries. Everybody's in
Right.
everybody's business.
Family sticks together, you know, we're allowed to call you out and tell you about yourself.
Yeah, and
Parents will like act like they can parent you and say whatever they want to you till you're like fucking grown, like, bro.
yeah, and so where the hell am I supposed to learn the concept of boundaries? Uh
Mm-hmm.
Obviously not my family, which is what I was supposed to learn it from. So then life has to teach me shit. My relationships have to teach me that. And it's a little unfair, but it is what it is. And but yeah, I'm just glad.
Dude, I even do that shit with my kids. Like, I straight up, like, now to a degree, and it's probably going to backfire in some ways. Like, a strict parent who has their kids, like, obedient would probably think my way is ineffective because of how much my kids can be disobedient at times, and they're not horrible. But, like, there's times where my kids are being pretty bad, and I don't act like I'm their ruler. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I do things like, look, this is my home, this is my house. Like, you will respect me in it, and you will, like, I don't want fighting, I don't want yelling, I don't want negativity all up in here. But like, let's say I need to talk to like my son about something, I'll ask him like, hey, I want to talk to you about some things. And if he's like, I don't feel like it right now, I'm like, well, I'd like to at some point, but I'll respect your space right now. I don't just come at him like, oh, I'm about to tell you about yourself. This is the way you should be. This is everything you're doing that's wrong. I'm the boss. You need to obey and listen. Like, because I feel like, that's just ineffective on like a psychological level. Or even like my 4-year old, man, I'm like, hey, like, she's like mad. She'll be like, I'm mad at you. You did this and that will hurt my feelings. And I'm like, okay, like, sorry about that. And I don't flip it right back. Sometimes I do, but I
Hmm.
try not to be like, well, you did this. That's why, but there's times, and I have done this with her since she was born. So she doesn't throw like crazy temper tantrums or, get out of line with me. She's pretty chill and respectful, but she also knows she can express her feelings even if it's not what I would prefer. You know what I mean? Like, don't be rude, don't be mean, aggressive with me. But you could say something that you don't like about me, go ahead. And she's pretty respectful about it. And we actually work it out. Like, it's kind of cool.
No, that's really good. And like, it'd be cool if like parents understood that, because like the way my grandma was just like, I would do something wrong or she's mad at me or something, and I'd be like, I would just literally want to know, like genuinely want to know why. Like, what is going on? Why? What did I do? And she just wouldn't tell me. She'd just be like, well, because I'm older and you're nothing and you're just not even a human being and you have no right to feel anything. And it's just fucking
Right.
bullshit. Like, seriously,
We got a pretty extreme case there, too.
like, parents need to see their kids as little humans, okay? Like, not just some, I don't even know. Just little things that, like, little robots that, like, don't have their own thoughts or opinions or wants or needs, or just being able to just talk to them and explain, like, okay, you're doing this and this is wrong because of this. Like, that just changes so much if you just explain to them.
Well, you got to understand though, especially like in older times, people don't know about that shit. Like, they are raised like, your kid talks back, you smack them in the mouth. Like, you kids get smacked in the mouth for asking questions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, for being like, hey, I want a toy. Whack. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, or there's times where, like, let's say, one of the parents is like lying about something, and the kid's like, well, daddy, why'd you tell him that? You just told me at the house you hate this guy. Whack. You know what I mean? Like, and that's not
You get
right.
smacked for
But
telling
that's
the
how people,
truth.
yeah, yeah. Or talking or being a kid or whatever. And maybe these are more extreme cases, but like, people were raised that way. Like, you hit your kids if they are out of line. You like hit them with a belt, you smack them in the mouth, you put soap in their mouth, you do all these things. So like, when they grow up having their dads beat them, so then they grow up and they're like, well, my kid's being, a kid and not listening to every single thing I say the first time I
Mhm.
say it, and they're being loud and wild like a human probably should be, to a degree. We need guidance. And you know what else? It's the easy way. Like, how much harder it is to have a conversation with your
Yeah.
kid and have them try to like choose to do the right thing, when you would rather just like whip out a belt, hit them twice, have them run off and cry, cause some psychological scarring. Fucking, then all you got to do is reach for the belt next time, and they're like, oh shit. You know what I mean? Like, then they just live in fear of their own fucking protector. Like, don't get me started.
And then they wonder
But yeah,
why their
like,
kids have mental issues growing up and getting older.
yeah.
And then, oh, why?
That's why my age is the whole generation of soft ass parents. Like, I never got beat as a kid, but I always was like, I'm not gonna like beat my kids like that, because I couldn't imagine like feeling like that as a kid. But like, definitely my generation is the ones who are, or maybe it's my mom's generation, who's the ones that are like, we're just never going to hit our kids. Our kids are special. They are the world. And that's why we're all a bunch of entitled brats. Like, it's like there's a healthy medium, you know, of not just like making your kids obey by like physical force and like shaming, but also, hey, let's not just let them run wild either. We need to have these conversations with them and keep them in line and hold them to a standard. We just don't need to use violence to do it, you know.
Yeah, it just literally it just seriously with literally anything in life, it boils down to jumping to an extreme is so much easier. So it's like you're either super strict or you're super soft. And to get
Mm-hmm.
into that balance is like the hardest thing in life, but it's the key to everything. If you have a balance in every aspect in your life with anything, you're set. But we
Yeah.
have such a hard time getting to that balance. We jump, we fucking hop around from one defect to the other side of it, from doing it one way to a completely other way. Because when you completely give it all to the one thing, it's just so easy. And we all just want to take the easy way out. We don't want to work hard towards that fine middle. And
Right.
it would be really cool if, like, someday we did. I have a dream.
For sure. Can we call this podcast Hopscotching Through Defects?
Um, sure. I mean,
Yeah, you don't like it. You don't like it.
well, I like perfectionism is a disease, but
Oh, okay. Okay.